This and that and what the fuck else, episode 153. Now, as you all should know by now, I was in jail, and it gave me a lot of time to think. The reality is that the alternative media is under pressure, and we are all basically living on a knife's edge. But I'm not going to let that stop me. This one I'm going to talk about BRICS, Donbass, and then there's some immigration information that is quite disturbing, NATO, Russia, Ukraine, and what a fuck that will really make you doubt everything that you grew up to appreciate as good values. Morality is out of the door. Let's start with BRICS. The US war against Russia using Ukraine is above all a resource war. The US wants to steal Russia's oil, gas, minerals, agricultural lands. The Wall Street Journal conducted a global study of the value of all the natural resources by country. And if you look at this image, you can see the values there of the natural resources of these countries. Look there at Russia, $75 trillion. USA, $45 trillion. That's almost half. Saudi, $34.4 trillion. Canada, $33 trillion. Iran, $27 trillion. China, $23 trillion. Brazil, $21 trillion. Australia, $19 trillion. Iraq, $15 trillion. Venezuela, $14 trillion. Now, out of that top 10, take a careful look. There's America at number 2, Canada at number 4, and Australia at number 8. And the rest is in the BRICS Block. Something to think about. And then there was this interesting information that came out, all bricked up. Multipolar march continues at full steam as the BRICS overtake a rich and warmongering group of 7 countries led by the US, with 31.5% of the world GDP now coming from BRICS, while G7 contributes 30%. Washington worried sick as BRICS projected to get even stronger, with Indian and Chinese economies relentlessly growing, while over a dozen states want to join organization and show the US the middle finger. US hegemony, thing of the past, as multipolar world goes from strength to strength. And that is quite interesting. If you look at that performance. Now, this you must see and understand was part of the motivation to get that hoax of ICC warrant issued against Putin. The West only wants to embarrass the BRICS leaders at the upcoming gathering in August. That's all they wanted to do. And here's a visual of the BRICS countries, which is the red ones, and the orange ones are the ones that want to come in now. Take a look at that map, think about it. And then a bit about the pestilence, which is fucking dangerous for me, but I'm not going to linger on it. You can look at it yourself, read through it, and the headline should tell you everything. Oh yeah, Hypocrite of the Year Awards. Look at what they're doing to the people in Australia. And then we get to the Donbass. Many soldiers wonder what they are fighting for. The Belgian journalist reports what Western media won't. Ukraine's armed forces defending the city that they call Bakhmut are questioning why they are laying down their lives for an already destroyed city. And That is a damn good question, and a lot of people are astounded by what's happening there in Bakhmut, but Bakhmut is basically done at a hell of a cost to the Ukrainians. There are estimates, and all these things are estimates, but there are analysts that are of the opinion that defending Bakhmut has cost the Ukrainians 100,000 men, and I don't know how many tons of equipment. And then there's more from another Western journalist, Finnish journalist, about Kiev regime's war crimes. What was done against the Donbass people can be done to anyone, anywhere. Why? Just because they defend their culture, their language, their motherland. The Finnish journalist was one of the first to tell the truth about the situation in Ukraine and Donbass. He was at the center of events in 2014. Today he keeps fulfilling his mission. Thanks to Jonas, people in the West can now know the reality and not just what is reported by Western media. It is, to me, this blanket that has been pulled over the events in the Donbass is extremely disturbing. But my Nazi stalker, he likes it, because in his fantasy world, the Donbass does not exist. The Donbass is just a name of a place somewhere on a map. The thousands of people that are being killed there by the Nazis, that does not feature in his brain, because he lives in that vacuum of Western narrative. Here's another one that Nazi stalker should take note of. The temple destroyed by the Ukrainian Nazis in the Luhansk region. From the temple, only the pillar with the Archangel Gabriel remained intact. And that would make him happy, I think. And then we get to education. 78% of grade 4 learners could not read for meaning in any language. 79% of grade 6 math teachers in the country scored below 60% on a grade 6 math test. In the long run, South Africa's failed public education system is a much bigger crisis than Eskom. And I agree with him. It's very disturbing, these numbers. And then there's just this piece of information. Every time you hear the term fossil fuel on the TV, radio, news, etc., you're being lied to. In 1892, at the Geneva Convention, the smartest man in the oil industry, J.D. Rockefeller, paid scientists to call oil a fossil fuel, to induce the idea of scarcity, in order to set a world price for oil. The truth is that oil is actually the second most prevalent liquid on Earth, next to water, and regenerates within the Earth faster than it can be depleted. Now, there's a lot of people that will frown about that, but in one of my visits in Kuwait, I was talking to one of the guys one night, sitting around a fire, and I asked him about the production and so forth, and he said to me, look, we've got wells here that we've been pumping for the past 40 years, and there's no reduction. And he also added, and he said to me, what makes you guys think that the process that originally generated oil has stopped? Think about that. And then we get to the EU. War only benefits the rich. Hundreds of Germans denounce Ukraine hostilities. Hundreds of anti-war protesters rallied in Nuremberg, demanding an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine and a ban on nuclear weapons. But that's in Germany. And we know what that Annalena Dambach said to Zelensky as she visited him in Kiev. She does not care what the voters want. Let that sink in and think about that. The West is always telling us that they are protecting democratic rights. And then there's this interesting development. Russia sends first fuel cargo by rail to Iran. Reuters reported that Russia has made the first fuel deliveries to Iran by rail as the two countries rapidly expand energy and trade ties amid Western restrictions. Last autumn, Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak announced that Moscow and Tehran had clinched a massive energy deal worth $40 billion and agreed to swap oil and natural gas supplies. All fuel cargoes were shipped from Russia through Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan by rail because Moscow seeks to expand rail deliveries to Iran as seaborne diesel and gasoline cargoes face high freight fees and are subject to Western imposed price caps. Interesting. And then there's this notice that you can take note of. How can you tell the truth is being told? Well, when Facebook blocks it, Twitter deletes it, Google hides it, YouTube bans it, the media censors it, and your government forbids it. Let that sink in. And then we get to the immigration thing, and this is quite disturbing. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is from the UK. Over 60% of all births in England are now non-white. I have done Skidmarks about the UK. The UK is done. And then this disturbing news from France. Macron's Great Replacement Scheme. 40 migrants being sent to a small French village of Bezenoc with 357 residents as local opposition grows. With cities buckling under the pressure of migration, France is looking to relocate thousands of foreigners to the French countryside. And that is how they will dilute the natural population of every European city. Just remember, the main goal is no white people left in Europe, only coloreds. In this, far-left politician Macron accused of accelerating replacement migration after promising to diversify rural areas. French government will relocate thousands of migrants to the French rural cities to boost integration. Small town and rural residents tend to favor conservative parties and entirely oppose diversity and multiculturalism. They are also much less likely than urbanites to trust the system, yet far more likely to actually vote. Macron is accused of trying to change demographics to alter voting patterns and replace the French. This is not an accusation, that's a fact. That is the thing that he is doing. That's part of the WEF plan. And look at this. This should be a very disturbing piece of information. For the first time in French history, practicing Muslims outnumbered practicing Catholics among the population aged 8 to 59. Look at that. Catholics, 15%. Muslims, 58%. Let that sink in. And then we get to NATO. And this guy says, NATO-stan, previously known as Europe. The NATO expanders are telling us that Russia's actions inside its unchanged borders are exactly why we had to expand NATO's borders. Russia's reaction to NATO expansion enlargements justifies NATO's enlargement expansion. Look at that. And then I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can stop it if you want to. Just interest sake, now with Finland going into NATO and cancelling the neutrality agreement they had with Russia, Finland loses territory. Those islands there that you see there at the top, the expected moment has happened. On 4 April, Finland officially became the 31st member of NATO. All members of the alliance ratified the agreement on Helsinki's accession to North Atlantic Treaty. The news was greeted with cheers from some Finnish cities and bewilderment from the majority of the population. Finland has now received all the economic cost at once. Cutting off transit, disruption of cross-border trade, reduction of tourist traffic, exclusion of energy and industrial wood supplies, all this must cool down the ardor of the hot-minded Finnish boys. And that island is now apparently no longer theirs. And then we get to this crazy guy that we have here in South Africa, Nick Headley, and he tweeted Sasol's largest plant in the Secunda complex, about 130 kilometers from Johannesburg, produces more climate-warming gases than either Portugal or Norway. And I replied to that and I said that this guy, he is dead set on every industrial installation in South Africa must be shut down. All vehicles must be taken off the road. All agricultural tractors and harvesters must be banned because of the green idea. And then he blessed me with a reply, "What a load of shit," and blocked me. Good riddance, I would say. And then we get to Russia. Russia's foreign reserves are now exceeding 600 billion. External debt fell to 358 billion, the lowest level in 16 years. Since the beginning of the SMO, external debt decreased by $125 billion. More sanctions. Oh yes, please. Pepe Escobar posted this. And my Zazi stalker, just for his information, because I have it on a clip where he told me the Russian economy is in the drain. And everybody lies about the Russian economy. And there was a guy that replied to this and he said, in 2018, Putin explained that sanctions harm economies, but they would allow him to defend Russia's best interest. We see he doesn't have to convince the incredulous to abandon the US dollar. The US can weaponize it and the financial system on a whim. And then we get this from Russia. According to Article 282 of the Criminal Code, raising hate or hostility or equally humiliation of human dignity, actions aimed at the incitement of hatred or enmity, as well as the humiliation of a person or a group of persons on grounds of sex, race, nationality, language, origin, attitude to religion, as well as affiliation to a social group committed publicly or with the use of media or information and telecommunication networks, including the network internet, shall be punished by a fine of 300,000 to 500,000 rubles, or the salary or income for a period of 2 to 3 years, or community service for a period of 1 year to 4 years. And you should stop this and read this whole thing. This is the changes in the Russian law. And this cuts in with what I have said in previous Skidmarks. Russia has got 199 ethnic groups, but there's over 2,000 cultural groupings. And you'd never hear about ethnic violence in Russia. But their constitution prohibits all and any discrimination. Someone must talk to Putin and tell him what this fucking ANC is doing here in South Africa. Then the sanctions. US considers sanctioning Hungary for not towing Ukraine line. Washington is considering imposing sanctions on Budapest for its refusal to tow the line over the Ukraine conflict. The 444 news outlet reports, the US may sanction members of the Hungarian government or influential persons. The measure could come in the form of travel bans, in which the US already targets Hungarian officials since 2014. And just another thing, the US think they can prescribe to the whole world, and they are the only ones that can decide what is right and wrong. And then this news from the UK. The UK to give a further $500 million in loan guarantees to Ukraine. The guarantees will take the total this year to $1 billion, British Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt said. Now, I'm not going to read all of it. The reality is this. The British economy is in the drains. The people in Britain is suffering like hell. I see the Bank of England has now issued a notice where the people must now accept that they are growing poorer, and the UK citizens must take another one up the zonkers from a government that they allow to rule them. And then we get to that idiot sitting there in the Ukraine, the clown that has been made the president. Zelensky and co. embezzled $400 million in fuel aid funds. According to the famed journalist, the donated money was to be used to purchase diesel. Well, my Zazi stalker, he must be smiling widely because his hero is just a little bit richer. And then we get this from Dmitry Medvedev, and this is directed at Poland. Some dumbhead called Mateusz Morawiecki said that the Ukraine had the right to hit Russia, and that he had no worries about NATO's war against Russia, because the latter would soon lose it. I don't know who's going to win or lose such a war, but considering Poland's role as NATO's outpost in Europe, this country is sure to disappear together with its stupid Prime Minister. Classic Medvedev. And then we get to that what a fuck moment, and you must just look at this and let it sink in and try and wrap your mind around the fucking madness that has gripped the West. I'm a proud Christian porn star. God put me on earth to enjoy sexual pleasure. What a fuck is that? How delusional has people become? And on that, please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing, and you'll have to put a little bit of effort in. This 14 days in jail has hurt my channel. Thank you for your support.